Is there a game you absolutely love that most people don't? You understand some of the criticism, you see why it's flawed, but you just don't care. It captures your imagination. It's fun. You go back to it over and over again. For me, I have two such games, Donkey Kong 64 and Star Fox Adventures. I adore these two games, despite their flaws. When the virus first hit last year and everything stopped for a couple weeks, I spent some of my extra time replaying both of them. But I also wanted to take a chance and look at them both critically. What about these games do I love so much? Why do they work so well for me? And where do they not? I think it'll be fun to slow down a bit and analyze both the positives and the negatives over both of these games, see where they triumph and where they fall flat. And first, I wanted to focus on Star Fox Adventures. Star Fox Adventures is fascinating to look at from its somewhat turbulent development. It was developed by the once powerhouse development studio Rare and was planned for the Nintendo 64 under the name Dinosaur Planet. You can actually find some of the footage of this game in this stage on YouTube, and it's interesting to compare it to the final. The biggest thing to note was that this game was never supposed to be a Star Fox game. It was its own original title and starred a brother and sister duo, both of whom you got to control. The sister, Crystal, did survive the transition into the Star Fox game, and is now a staple character in the series, but we'll discuss that a little bit more later. But all this change came about when Shigeru Miyamoto, most notably the creator of Mario and Zelda, pointed out that the brother did look a lot like Fox McCloud, and the game could be turned into a Star Fox game which would carry brand recognition among consumers. The story and the main character was then altered to Star Fox McCloud, despite the game being a far departure from the on-rail shooter gameplay his series was known for. But this game was very ambitious for the Nintendo 64, and as the Nintendo 64's life cycle was coming to a close, it was suggested that the game would be better suited for the upcoming Nintendo Gamecube, both for its more advanced hardware, and also so that the game would have a better chance to be successful as a frontrunner game on the GameCube, and not just a forgotten last-gen title. I do believe this decision was for the best, as the game did make the jump onto the next gen beautifully, though some of its simpler N64 components might have been part of what held this game back. Instead of having time to fully flesh out this game to better fit on the new console, Rare was faced with a difficult deadline. The company was being bought out by competitor Microsoft. In fact, Star Fox Adventures was the last game Rare developed for a Nintendo console, ending a beautiful partnership which produced many of Nintendo's most beloved games from the Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 era. The time crunch can be seen in some of the details of Star Fox Adventures, as some of the game's elements and flow, and most notably the game's final act, suffered from the lack of polish the rest of the game had. But not all was doom and gloom for Star Fox Adventures. There's a lot of fun and charm hidden in this game, as was often expected from a Nintendo Rare game. The first thing you notice when starting up the game is that it is graphically gorgeous. This blew my mind when it came out in 2002. I hadn't seen anything like it. Fox and Crystal had fur! The characters were so expressive, the textures looked really good. Obviously, while we've come a long way in graphical development in the past 20 years, this game still holds up better than most from its era. My parents were actually given a free DVD that contained a whole bunch of trailers of upcoming GameCube games when the console first came out, and I would watch the trailer for Star Fox Adventures obsessively. Also, that DVD kickstarted my love for Animal Crossing, but that is a story for another day. Besides being a beautiful game, it also has a lot of variety to its world. While there are some standard adventure game locations like Dark Ice Mines, there's also locations like a moon, sorta, and a desert apocalyptic land, and an ancient South American-inspired area, and a beautiful bay, and essentially a giant bird cage utopia thing? The hub area, Thorntail Hollow, has a lot more going on in it than the usual hub worlds of the time. There always seems to be a new quest or activity every time you return to it, which helps it feel like a real world and time actually passes there. The world is also filled with many different dinosaur tribes, and each tribe has a bit of its own culture. We know that the Earthwalkers and Cloud Runners are both very regal, but they don't see eye to eye. The Thorntails are down-to-earth, everyday folks. The Lightfoot tribe is possibly problematic. And the Red Eyes honestly make no sense as a tribe because they don't speak and they couldn't have possibly built this place, and they just act like plain old T-Rexes, but they're terrifying and I love them. It's not just that the land has variety, but also the gameplay. You're always up to something new in every area, whether it's protecting Thorntail eggs from snatchers and driving this hovercraft speeder thing off to cut off some sharp claws, or running through a temple with invisible walls before time runs out. To me, the game never feels stale and makes it easy to marathon when other games lose my attention faster and make me take more breaks in between play sessions. While this game has been referred to by some as a Zelda knockoff, and it's true that the puzzles aren't quite as good as what I personally would expect from a Zelda game, it's still really competent. Also, while the flying R-Wing bits do feel tacked onto the game and make it more Star Fox, I actually enjoyed them and it adds more variety to me, although they also could have just as easily cut them out and it would not affect the game at all. Star Fox Adventures can also be considered a collectathon, but it achieves a really good balance in what you need to collect. The major story elements are the 4 Spellstones and the 6 Krazoa Spirits. You also need to collect fuel cells for your ship and grub-tub mushrooms to feed your companion Tricky that you're constantly on the lookout for. And there are some items that get used in special circumstances, such as the Sharp Claw suit and the flute. Besides the grub-tub mushrooms running away from you in the daytime, which does get old, I never felt burdened by having to collect items in this game. This is also helped by the fact that the game does a good job at teaching you to learn your way around the world and find its secrets. Cloudrunner Fortress is one of the prime examples of this. Like, for one thing, when you have to find Queen Cloudrunner's children so they don't run off, the children start off in a couple of obvious locations, but then move to areas that force you to think and remember little secrets or suspicious areas you saw before that seem to have no purpose. And after you accomplish that task, you realize better how the whole world connects, and you feel like you can easily run from point A to point B without getting turned around. While Cloudrunner Fortress does this more towards the end of its story section, Lifewood Village does it more towards the beginning. One is more about putting your final knowledge together, and the other is more like a blind run test at first, but then you feel like you confidently know the area after when you have to return back later. There are also just little details in this game that make it memorable. The music is really enjoyable, with David Wise of Donkey Kong Country fame being the main composer. Using Tricky as a sidekick is unique, and I did end up growing a bond with him. Getting lost in the main shop is fun. The Red Eye King fight, just out of pure claustrophobic terror, is still one of the most memorable boss fights I have ever done. I'm also just a sucker for any game that stars dinosaurs, and this game has a lot of dinosaurs! And while I adore this game and come back to play it time and time again, not everything is perfect. The first big flaw is honestly that this is a Star Fox game. It's not Star Fox. All the fans who were looking for the next on-rail shooter never got what they wanted. The game makes nods to them, like the previously mentioned flying parts to different planet chunks and a really out-of-the-blue final fight, but the game should have embraced that it was a different game rather than trying to please both groups and doing neither. Instead, things like the final boss fight felt super out of the blue and inconsistent with all of the game's previous gameplay, and not to mention it introduced characters that newcomers to the series would have no idea about. And the worst part about making this a Star Fox game, especially because it was not well received by the fans, means it killed this game from ever getting a sequel or becoming its own series. It's now a black sheep of a franchise rather than becoming something unique that still might exist to this day. The impending selling of Rare to Microsoft was also evident. The ending of this game is horribly rushed. The last few Krazoa tasks happen back to back, and the battle with General Scales that the whole game was leading up to, and spoilers here, but it never happened! And honestly, the most egregious thing that this game did to me was once you left the walled city for the last time in the game, you can't go anywhere but Krazoa Palace ever again. Excuse me? This is a collectathon adventure game. What do you mean I can't explore on this game file ever again? What about all the things I didn't buy or the things I didn't explore? They're just gone? They're locked out forever? Like, what nonsense is this? Do they realize that now every time I play this game, I do not even blink at the optional stuff in this game because it is pointless now because of this awful decision that they did at the end of this game? Like, seriously, who does this? These elements seem more obvious on subsequent playthroughs. Like, also the Warp Stone should be somewhat important, right? But all he really can do is send you to a small dead-end area, a maze that is pointless because of why explore optional things, and Krazoa Palace, which can only be accessed if you have a Krazoa spirit. This dude is practically useless, but like, you can tell that he was supposed to be more important originally. And then poor Crystal went from being one of the main two protagonists to just a sexy plot progression point. I like how determined and caring she seems to be in the beginning of the game. I would love to have seen her more. Then she spends almost the whole game locked away in a crystal, and yeah, Fox wants to save her because she's beautiful as awkward, slow jazz music plays. And when she's saved, she doesn't do anything except take her staff back, so now I have to fly, and she wasn't even doing any damage, and At least they've made her part of the Star Fox series now, so her character sometimes gets to do things now, which is cool. Another common complaint about this game is its combat. While combat looks flashy and fun, all you do is press A. That's it. Just press A. It not even timed. It's completely mindless. You even auto-lock onto the closest enemy, and the other enemies don't try to hurt you when you do. Except for those annoying drop from the sky little dino things. Like, what are they? They're evil. That's what they are. Anyways, I think a lot of the combat simplicity comes from it originally being a Nintendo 64 game. When you see the original footage of Dinosaur Planet, it doesn't look like it could handle a more complex combat system than that. If the game had more development time, I would have loved to have seen this more fleshed out for the GameCube. And while I like that you don't have to open like a pause menu to equip items, the menu item controlled by the C-stick is sometimes a bit oversensitive. It's easy to accidentally hit the wrong direction and have to go back, and it's a very minor irritation, but it's something that could have been a little bit more fine-tuned. You can also only save one menu item as a quick command, and about 80% of the time it will be your blaster. Most of the game's voice acting is also laughably bad, but thankfully Fox McCloud is pretty good. My brother and I affectionately quote this game all the time because the bad voice acting just makes everything so much more memorable.
My eggs! They're stealing my eggs! Please help!
It seeks the scarabs to enter Cape Claw. Go on, in you go.
Also, this one is totally personal and not necessarily bad game design, but the test of fear is awful, and I hate it, and it's dumb, and I'm so bad at it. I hate keeping that stupid bar in the green, and then it just flings to the other side, and the only thing you can do is memorize when that happens and not overcompensate for it, and then if you fail, you get to go all through the temple again to get to that point. But with now both sides compared, what wins out? Is this a good game with some bad bits, or a bad game with some good bits? Well, I know some may disagree. I really do think it is a game with more good than bad. Yes, it certainly has flaws, of which some show more strongly with age, but it also shows itself to be a competent entry in the action, adventure, and collectathon genres. It was also a pioneer for a new console generation. And while in the beginning a lot of people were upset that this was considered a Star Fox game and it received a lot of hate for that, enough time has passed that we can now look at it for its own merits. If you ever happen to find a copy of Star Fox Adventures and have never played it, and you like this type of gameplay, I would still absolutely recommend you pick it up. It's not a groundbreaking experience, but I believe it is worth more than the sum of its parts. It's quick and fun and not too taxing. It's charming, even if at times a bit cringy. And it's certainly creative. There's nothing else out there quite like it. And I think that's why I can't help but being drawn back into it. It's something I don't mind experiencing again and again. This has been the Girl with the Controller. And remember, kids, don't let any spirit live inside you but the Holy Spirit. Also, my lovely friend Lacey bought me a microphone so I don't have to use my phone any longer, and I'm super grateful and wanted to give her a shout out. Thank you, Lacey, and I hope you all have a lovely day.